So as most of you know, because you're working on front-end refactor, there should be nothing new here really for most of the company. We've reached feature completeness in our V4 refactor. Obviously, we're still discovering missing actions and sections, and that's why we need the whole company to help us with testing to find all those missing bits and pieces. But the app is functional. You can do everything, like the basic functionality is working. Everything should be just fine. We have our UI tests fixed now, so they're running. So we are approaching alpha stage. And talking about alpha version testing, this is not related to bug bash. This is something we're doing in parallel with the bug bash. This is where we want to involve people from outside of the company. So there are two different ways how people can test the alpha version of the new Octopus UI. One is doing this remotely using our permanent instance. And this is for, if anybody from outside of our organization is watching this video, these are the links that you can use to subscribe, to let us know that you want to participate in the alpha testing. If you do it remotely, use the first link. Also, you can come to the office next week on Thursday. I will be doing the whole day of testing then. If you have time and you want to come and help us with making V4 much better, please register using the second link. Okay, so what's changed? Basically, the whole UI has changed. There's nothing from the old UI that we basically copy and paste it. Every single screen, every single control is new. To give you some numbers, this is all new code written. Obviously, certain bits and pieces, like the pure JavaScript, in some cases was copied from the old portal. But that's, if you add TSX and TS files, that's 80,000 lines of code. That's technically speaking new. Plus, there are some features that I think they were meant to possibly be released before 4.0, but now we're not shipping anything major before 4.0, and they are shipping with 4.0. One of them is the new configuration API, so you can configure Octopus using API. You don't have to use the command line interface. So that's another thing that we would need to test. So just to emphasize that, like, every single piece of the UI that we present to our customers needs to be looked at and tested and checked. We are planning to start it tomorrow and end it when we are done. I can't really say how much time it would take. I will show you a sample Trello card for one of the areas, and we are looking at between 30 and 40 areas, and you will see, what's involved in testing a single area. How are we going to do it? You can test it locally by installing Octopus on your local machine or a VM, or you can use our permanent instance. There's a board with areas that needs to be covered. I'm not calling them scenarios because I'm not going to list all the scenarios. And one of the reasons why we need everybody to be involved is that we possibly have missed some scenarios. So if you get an area to test, let's say project overview, hopefully, ideally, you would be already familiar with that area. So you know all possible scenarios that this screen can offer to our customers, and you can test them. And ideally, you are not the person that built that screen, because obviously you've already missed them. So there's a very good chance you will miss them again. You can test individually, you can test as a team. One of the things we need to test is that we can upgrade from previous versions, that we can handle large installations. That might require more than one person, entirely up to you. So it makes sense, for example, to grab a couple of cards at the same time. So let's say if you think you can test everything related to multi-tenancy, then you can grab variables in multi-tenancy, the settings, and the dashboard for tenants if you want. As part of the testing, we will be updating docs, because obviously new UI means all screenshots in our docs needs to be updated. How you do it, if you do it at the end of the testing, if you do it as you go, it's entirely up to you. But before we mark an area as tested, as done, we need to make sure that docs are updated. We could keep those updates in a separate branch, but we have this nice feature in our docs where we can mark a version as a pre-release. So when customers navigate to our docs, that's not the pre-selected version. You have to actually manually switch to it. So we can be pushing to master directly. And at the same time, we'll get that immediate feedback that tells us whether the docs are updated properly or not, because we don't really have a good preview mechanism right now. So that's the idea. If you find a problem that you can fix, I don't know, a typo, or you like literally know, I know how to fix it, just fix it, because it will take more time to report the bug for someone else to get familiar with it, fix it and push it, than for you to fix it straight away. If you can't fix it, or it takes, for whatever reason, if it's not something you can fix on the spot, report it in our V4 Backbash Slack channel. I will be watching this, and I will be doing the triage as we go to make sure we don't have duplicates, and we can kind of distinguish between ideas and bugs. The idea is so you don't create the bugs or cards directly, you just let us know, or me know, or whoever is doing the triage on that day, and that person will create cards with bugs. The last thing is we have a definition of done for each of those cards. And what that means, and this will tell you the scope basically of the testing, we need to make sure that the permissions are enforced in the same way as it was done in the old portal. And we find that this is one of the most challenging parts. We need to make sure it works in IE 11, Firefox, Edge, Chrome, latest browsers. I have Safari on this list because officially we should be supporting it. The thing is, not all of us have Macs, so I'm not sure how reasonable this expectation is, especially that Safari, I suppose it's relatively close to Chrome. So if you have a Mac and you can test, that would be great. But if you have a PC, then you can't really test because there's no up-to-date Safari on Windows. We need to make sure that docs are updated. URLs are part of the UI, so we need to make sure that whatever the URLs are in the old portal, they still work in the new portal. We need to make sure that the app is usable in mobile tablet view. By usable, I mean things might not align properly, but you still should be able to read information and perform actions. But that wasn't the main focus on this exercise. So it just shouldn't be broken. That's the goal. We have a page, which is our style guide, where we list all our components that we use in, I can show you that. I can show you that, maybe that's the easiest way. Okay, that's our style guide. So we have a list of components that we use in the application, and most components have something which is called context attached to them, which explains how a given concept should be used. Because if you have a text box, you can use it in multiple different ways, but we want you to use those specific content in very specific ways. So we need to make sure, get familiar yourself with this page before you start testing, so you get that understanding. And when you test the page, certain things might not feel right or correct. Even we have a list, a restricted list of colors that we use, I think, yes. So these are basically all the colors we use in the app. But we use a library, which is an open source library called Material UI. In some cases, we might have not overridden the defaults, and you will see that the blues are different. So if you're familiar with this set of colors, you might immediately pick up that something just feels wrong. So have a look at this page before you start. And then I'll show you a sample card for one of the areas. Thanks. This was it's like the idea that was started by Mark Seidel. So I'm just using a bit of Trello API to automate that. But this is a sample list of checklists for dashboard, for project dashboard. And that would be specific, that's not specific to project dashboard. You would have a similar set of checklists for all pages or areas that are focused on UI. So we need to make sure we update docs, and we need to make sure like we have the orange bar. So before you take screenshot, make sure you close that thing, yeah, because otherwise that will show up there. We have a page on our wiki that describes how to take screenshots. So make sure you're familiar with that. Kind of the overall design, it's all about style guide and making sure this all feels right. We have a new way of showing progress indicator, which is a blue bar at the top. In most cases, if you're testing it locally or you have a really fast internet, you won't see it, or you would see it for milliseconds. So we explain to you how you can slow down your network so you can see, to make sure that we show those progress indicators everywhere. The responsive design, if you use Chrome, you can switch to mobile view, and then you can pick iPad or iPhone 6, and that should cover the tablet mode and the phone mode. You don't have to test on real devices. Permissions. Again, this is going to be the most challenging part, because I don't think we have that documented. To some extent, you will have to have a look at the old code and compare the app side by side, really, and make sure they behave the same way, they show actions the same way, or they disable actions the same way. And the general kind of feeling, just to make sure that the app makes sense or the flow makes sense when you test things. I'll be adding more of them as we go. Before we start tomorrow. Okay. What's next? Okay, how to report the problem. When you find something that you believe is broken or doesn't feel right, make sure you compare it with the old portal. There are two easy ways. We have a master permanent instance, so every push to master gets deployed there, so you can have a look there. Or in our permanent instance for this exercise, if you go /old portal, you will get the old portal. So you are using basically the same data. The first link might be the easiest because you're looking at the same data. You don't have to recreate it in both instances. The only thing is that at this stage, I think the old portal is still pretty functional, but we are not paying attention to it. So certain things might be broken there. That's why I'm giving you the other option. The master should be fully functional. Nothing should be broken there. So compare the new UI and the old UI and see if they differ or if they do things in the same way. We need to remember that the old UI, it contains years of fixes and the responses to problems that our customers reported. So certain pages might be unique, and there might be a good reason why they're unique, because if people very often trip over something, then we just fix that one thing because that was the problem. So even if something doesn't make sense initially, just always check against the old portal. And the usual things, steps to reproduce screenshots, check for errors in the dev console. Again, this is about UI. The whole UI is written in JavaScript in React. We should be showing you errors at the top of the screen, always. But again, if you are presented with a white screen of dev, you see nothing, or you click on something and there's no response, no errors, just open the dev console and the error should be at least there. Tell us what browser you're using and the build version. It's in the orange bar at the top. Okay, we have some comments. Okay, so this is about browser stack for using Safari. So apparently we have a subscription, but it's not up to date. How to report? Okay, so the next kind of obvious question is how and when should we fix those problems? And I was thinking about this, and this is really not the answer. This is just an idea. That's why there's a question mark at the end. I'm thinking about that we should be only fixing really, when we do testing, only showstoppers. So we don't distract ourselves from doing testing. That's the idea. If you believe that we should be fixing them as we go, or spend a certain amount of time daily to fix bugs, I'm open to suggestions. And yes, that's a lot of work, as you can see, and that's why we literally need everybody to help us with that. Even the front end of the factory team, which is, I think, 10, 12 people at this stage, or maybe even more. I don't really, I lost count. It won't be enough to finish all of that. All right, questions? Ready?
What opinion edit should we get in the feedback? Like, should we just stick to this blatantly doesn't work, or I don't like this response, or?
Yeah, I think comparing to the old portal will help you a lot, because the thing is, we've redesigned a few areas, like the environment dashboard, the infrastructure dashboard, that's a new thing, the variable editor, the deployment screen. So they're different.
I think constructive criticism on design choices or layouts, whatever, is probably a good thing.
A bit of powerful triage.
Why I mentioned the old portal is if one particular behavior doesn't make sense, and you compare it to the old portal and work the same way, there's a very good chance that there was an issue attached to it and it was done this way on purpose. But if you disagree with the way, I don't know, we implemented forms or validation, kind of general concepts, yeah, that's definitely a very valuable feedback.
Did we want to switch to pull requests now? If the broader companies patching things, would they come as PRs or just pushes against?
The idea, we had a chat about this, because we are moving a lot of code, not really writing new code. Like, it's all new code, but moving the same functionality. So we haven't used PR so far, and we had a chat about this last week. And the idea is to switch to PRs after we are done with the company-wide testing. So if you have small tweaks, you can still push them. But once we are done with that, that's stable, let's say, and then all the bugs will need to come with PRs and tests. That's the idea.